good. So let's just switch right over to it. So earlier today, or over the night, we got information from Korea and from XL Games on their proposed balance changes for ArcheAge. Now, these balance changes, we knew that something was in the works since the beginning of August, since they had announced the focus group testing, which is actually happening later next week, I believe. What is it? Actually, is it this weekend? I'm not sure when they're doing focus group testing, but today they came out with a post saying exactly what those changes are across the board, everything, and of course it's in Korean. So that's fine for Google Translate to take care of most of this stuff, but for the images themselves, I've got a really nice OCR program. It's an extension to Chrome that I'm going to be using in order to actually translate this stuff, which for the most part has been a pretty darn good program to actually make it work. I mean, honestly, it's insanely good compared to a lot of the other OCR. Plus, it already translates it for you. I freaking love this program. So I'm going to be looking over all of the changes in fine detail. I'm not going to make any assumptions here. I'm not going to think what the new meta is. I'm just going to use this to kind of skew people's opinions towards coming up with new ideas, okay? 50% of the population is playing Dark Runner, the other 50% is playing some kind of fast mage, and it sucks that it's come to this, because I don't blame them. Those are the two real options to play at the moment. And I'm hoping that people kind of use this balance patch to kind of come up with new ideas, start playing differently early, so that when this patch does hit, they don't feel like they've lost everything and they just quit the game. I hope that people kind of are smarter than that and actually try to play the game to progress and get better and try new things like this was meant to be from the beginning. And it sucks that the balance patch is coming this late in the ArcheAge lifetime, but it's better late than never. Plus, for somebody like me who likes to mess around with different classes, or at least the idea of them, this patch is awesome. So, or at least the idea of it is pretty awesome. So we'll see how the actual execution is. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Right from the top, there's dude telling everybody that he's the planning team leader and all the different things that he is essentially talking about these balance changes. But let's go right to the actual changes themselves. And besides these common changes that they list, there's a couple more things we should actually go over before we go over all the skills. We'll get to these. So before I go individually through the skills, there's some things you need to know about melee, ranged, and magic and healing DPS or healing. So we'll get to those before we get to all the skills. But first, let's look these over. So there's been some attack speed changes that they're looking at, and the idea is that overall they're going to be increasing attack speed across the board, or at least trying to in various ways for every sort of DPS or healing per second, all the different specs you can be. And obviously they're doing this here with Fighting Frenzy attack speed up to 250. That's from what I understand, that's the Battle Frenzy. Battle Frenzy is going to increase attack. Feral Mark is going to increase attack, based on stacks up to a certain. Oh, there we go. Sorry, the headset went out. Anyways, Feral Mark is going to be increasing attack per stack up to a certain type or a certain amount. We'll get to the Feral Mark later. Magic, they're going to be increasing, I guess, attack speed up and casting time reduced. So they're really making the game a lot faster. And Prayer from, I believe that's Vitalism, is going to have just a general decrease in casting time. So they're trying to make everything faster. And it's blatantly obvious that they're doing this. I guess it's because everybody likes playing fast builds and they just said, screw it, let's make everything fast. I guess that seems to be the case. So like as a tank, you'll actually have lower global cooldown times than you would right now. At least that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make the whole game fast, because everybody's playing fast classes, whatever. Let's make everybody have that. So that seems to be what they're doing with these kind of changes. And I mean, we'll see how that goes. I definitely think it's more fun. I think that people will in general have more fun with it, and will require people to think a lot faster as well and come up with different sort of strategies, because if everybody's attacking faster and shooting things faster, that means that everything's going to be on cooldown more often. And one of the big things they've changed with regards to those and casting everything is mana reduction. Mana over across the board has been reduced by about 52% in general. So every skill that you can think of has pretty much been halved on average in terms of mana costs. And that's a big deal. That means you can essentially do twice as what you could before before your mana run out. And for witchcraft builds who are trying to kill off your mana in low number fights, that might be a big deal. You know, maybe they're not as effective, or maybe they've actually increased the mana drain. I don't know. But in large number fights, that's not really a big deal. People, you know, use potions for mana and things like that if they really need to. So, I don't know. We'll see how that affects the actual raid versus raid gameplay, but I would assume not very much. But yes, so for things like farming mobs and for just general low number of gameplay, you know, 1v1s, this is kind of like a direct thing to say, okay, now let's make 1v1s a little bit more, you know, a little bit easier. It's not going to be just like both people running out of mana and then just sitting there for a long time waiting for that to actually get regen, something like that. So that's fine, that's cool. I don't really care too much about this. I think it's fine. I mean, I play a class personally that uses tons of mana instantly, and so I have to chug pots all the time for mana. Whatever, it's cool. I guess it's fine. I guess it's good for me. Maybe people will actually play things like Fiend Hunter, because Fiend Hunter is all 3 DPS skill sets, and it takes in a tremendous amount of mana in order to play that, and a tremendous amount of gear. But yeah, I doubt that will still be viable, but we'll see. So changes to make difficult to identify, technical tools and description. So they're kind of explaining all the different CCs and debuffs that you get here. So there's things like slow, which includes all weakening effects that slow movements. There's snare, which essentially makes it so that when you're snared, you cannot turn. I guess that's something that's never really been defined. When you're snared, you actually can't turn currently. I'm not sure. I think they're just kind of stating this so that everybody is aware of it. There's icification, which has 3 different sort of levels, and I'm not entirely sure what this is talking about because I don't play mage I don't play mage. So there's current existing freeze with slow. There's ice fragment, which is existing freeze, but you are snared. And there is a freeze, which is just an actual freeze that applies the sleeping attribute, or counts as a sleep, essentially. That freeze when you get stuck in freezing steps, that's what that is. It's technically a sleep. So they're kind of explaining it here. There's this, which is the elimination of distance skill penalty. So this is something specific for ranged and archer builds. This is why everybody's saying archery is saved, or at least one of the reasons. There's quite a few reasons, I would say, but let's start with this one. So all of the ranged attacks that archery has currently in the game are reduced in damage by 20% if your target is within 8 meters, and they're completely eliminating that. It's completely gone. Now you will do full damage to all the targets, regardless of range, except they've also added feral range technology damage change. So now there's some kind of precise firing skill. There's some kind of a skill or activation that makes it so that you actually do extra damage on top of that, on top of your normal damage, based on how far away you are from the target. And so the farther you are away, the more skill damage you actually do to the target, which, I mean, at first glance could be kind of OP. I mean, you really think about it, it's like, wait a minute, hold on. Somebody's firing at me with 50, from 50 meters, and he's going to do that much more damage to me? We'll see. We don't know, because this scares me. So before change, distance to target 0 to 8, 20% reduction. Okay. And distance to target 8 to 25 meters, apply 100% of technology damage. So actually, hold on, these are all before the changes. So as the distance from the target increases, the damage increases proportionally to distance. So we actually don't have the numbers here for this. I think it's supposed to say after change. Is this a different letter? Well, I don't know. Anyways, so this is the kind of idea that they're doing here, is that the farther you are away, the more damage you get on top of the 100% damage. So they're trying to buff everybody. That's what they're trying to do, which makes sense. I get it. Archery is a little bit underplayed right now, but we'll see in the skills that have changed, see how that really plays out, or how it could, rather. So they've changed the accumulation for the abyssal charges, and I actually really love this. This is like my favorite thing. So essentially, now whenever you cast any skill from that skill set, you'll gain some kind of amount of points towards the charges, towards the abyssal charges, which is great because that means you're not stuck using some skills you don't want just to generate abyssal charges. You can just use anything. So Vitalism, healing players who used to use those 3 skills just to gain abyssal charges to res someone. Now you'll pretty much have abyssal charges up all the time, so long as you're just doing your job. But we'll see. I don't really understand how quickly it's charging based on these notes. I think we'll have to see that in actual practice. Because it says when one hate gauge is viewed as 1. So if you count one of those charges as the number 1, then that gauge is filled with a minimum of 0.03 to a maximum of 0.085 on a single skill. So maybe that's actually written on the skill, how much of the gauge it gives you, how much of the charges it gives you. But the maximum is less than 1, so that means you have to use at least more than 5 skills of some kind in order to get, or I'm sorry, the maximum is 4. You have to use at least more than 4 skills of some kind in order to get all 4 charges. Plus, you have to keep in mind that if you're going for the 6 charges, you're going to have to do all of that stuff again, and I believe that you'll probably be doubling the amount of charges you get when you're under that effective Rising Hatred, which is the thing that increases your charges up to 6. Hey Nuo, good to see you, man. We'll be getting to what you were asking, Nuo, in Discord a little bit later. So, let's keep going here. Ability Technology Recognition. This is, now we're getting into all the skills, and we will get into these in a second, but I want to really quickly go over a couple things. And everybody keeps talking about this on the forums, and it's super important. There's a few things in each skill set, including healing, or at least, I should say in each archetype, including healing, that have changed, which is somewhat dramatically different. And actually, I'm not too sure about healing, but let me go through the other ones. So first of all, melees, across the board, you'll notice that they have a lot less crowd control effects. Or if they have crowd control effects, they will require 1 to 2 extra combinations, combination of skills in order to actually achieve those crowd control effects. That's number 1 that you'll notice, is just across the board for melee. Magic kind of retained most of theirs, kind of focusing on like things like freezing steps, but Magic in general, damages haven't changed too much, and a lot of people are saying, that's kind of crazy considering how much damage they can already output with critical damage. But it's important to note that just in general for Magic, because if we go back to melee, you'll notice in the melee skills, you'll actually have a lot less crit rate across the melee skill trees. And we'll explain more based on the skills later. I know you're looking at this one right here and saying, oh, well, that looks like it's a higher number than 8% of the crit rate that we used to get. That's not crit rate. This is actually not crit rate anymore, from what I had seen. Let me just test it here. So this is actually not crit rate anymore. It's melee skill damage. It says right here, melee skill damage 10% increase. So that's gone. That old crit rate one that gave you parry for ranged attacks, it's just not a thing anymore. You can't parry ranged attacks unless there is unless there's like another tooltip or something somewhere that says you can. We'll look into it in a second. Maybe like Delirium Stacks or something does it, or maybe this does. I don't know, but we'll look into it. Anyways, this is not the skill you thought it was. You don't get the crit rate for that. So that's melee changes, and I mean sorcery changes. Everything's kind of generally the same, but we'll look into the individual skills in a little bit here. And across from ranged changes, ranged got buffed across the board, and Feral Mark did as well. Feral Mark now actually stacks based on your crit. So as you crit with ranged attacks, you gain Feral Mark stacks, and I think that's still based off of a passive here that we can read. Probably this one. And so you gain those stacks, I think it's up to 5, and at maximum you gain a whole bunch. Well, actually, I think as you gain stacks of it, you gain attack speed, you gain damage, you gain all this stuff, and you gain up to 5 stacks of Feral Mark, and I think that's it. I think you're at those stacks. So we'll explore more into that in a little bit. So healing changes overall, I think that just the big change with healing is that there's a lot less mana involved. So people already didn't really run out of mana. I don't expect people will be running out of mana ever again, and because of that I wanted to see what they did to this infuse skill. Is it even worth giving people mana back? It looks like they did keep that. But, and I only say that again because mana has been reduced by half across the board on every skill, on average by half. So, or at least almost half. So, Yeah, so we'll look into each individual skill a little bit later. And then, well, yeah, one more thing to mention is that the Bloodthirst mechanic has changed to some degree that I haven't figured out yet, because I can see everywhere here, written here, that there's a Bloodthirst combo that gives somebody the ability to make somebody turn into a bunch of waves that are red. I don't know what that means, but we'll look into it in a little bit. Maybe we can decode what that means. There's also a lot of different combos with bleeding and poison across the boards for archery, which is a little bit harder to get. I think it's harder to get poison now, right? No, Venom Shot is still a thing. But anyways, we'll look into the individual skills later, like I keep saying. And then I haven't looked too much at Witchcraft, but we'll do that, so I don't have any information up front for them to keep in mind. And neither with Defense. Defense obviously now has immunity to fear, which is kind of a big deal, more than people realize, at least in my opinion. And they also have the ability to reflect damage back with this Retribution. But again, we'll look into the specifics later. So just scrolling through, I think that is all the things I wanted to talk about up front before going into the actual individual skills. There is one more thing to note, that since 2 passives are now moved, or at least added to the Abyssal skill sets from each skill set, what that means is that in order to actually get those passives, you have to have Abyssal in that skill set. That means you can only get one set of passives at a time. Keep that in mind. That is super important. So we'll look into the individual Abyssal passives, and we'll do that in a little bit here. I realized Zeal wasn't changed, so that is still a thing if you want to make a Zeal build. Just say that up front as well if you want to start coming up with ideas. But either way, we'll get this patch live on our version probably beginning of next year at some point in the first quarter, I would assume. So it's still some time. From what I understand, Exogames is trying to release this by fall, or by the end of fall for them. So sometime soon, probably in the next couple months, Korea will get it. We'll learn more about it, and then our 4.0 comes at the end of this year, and but that won't include these balance changes from what I understand. It might, if we get lucky, but those will probably come much later, like beginning of next year. So let's go ahead and go into individual skills and skill changes. So first of all, Triple Slash mostly has stayed exactly the same. I know that sentence doesn't work that well, but it's important to note again the crowd control differences on all Battle Rage skills. So there's a bunch of information here. There are still 3 attacks. The third one one of them still creates Shaken, for example. Another one actually creates Slow. So I wanted to actually figure out which one it does, because it says at the top here, slows and shakens. And at the bottom here, we see that there's a new combo. There's no more trip combo. There's only a trip damage combo. There's only a snare combo with just Triple Slash alone. So I guess if you hit them 3 times, the target gets snared for some time. I don't know. We can kind of look through this. Can I actually expand this? I don't think I can. Yeah, I don't think I can. Yeah, okay, but anyways. So, third attack, the enemy target. There's AoE. And also, it's also important to note, this doesn't talk about the ancestral skills, but we can infer from these skills what those will do. So, not too much information here, unfortunately. It's just 3 continuous attacks, and then it talks about some numbers here, which apparently mentions the word Joe. But I think we can generally say that this does what it currently does with Shaken, except it will also apply a slow, and then eventually can snare the target. That's about it. All this causes is slow and snare, which is nice, except Whirlwind Slash is not going to trip targets that are slowed anymore. This is a big deal for people that like me, who like to merge slow in with Whirlwind Slash to cause AoE trips. That is not a thing anymore. Only snared targets get tripped with Whirlwind Slash. I don't know why I'm going like this along the skills, but again, it's totally important to note all of these crowd control combos are changing. That's pretty much an entirely new game for people who played Melee. You're going to have to learn how this new system works and just accept the fact that we can pretty much crowd control at the same rates as a mage, a healer, or an archer, because they can't really crowd control that as much as a melee ever could in our current version. And due to these changes, a melee is pretty much at the same rate of crowd control as those guys, as other archetypes, which I think is fine, actually. And I think that if you play the game the way it should be played, with hybrid builds and things like that, you can still do some pretty tricksy things. For example, bone walling a target means they can't escape, and if you do that to an archer, you've essentially crowd controlled them. Because, well, even though they'll do full damage to you, you know, from melee range, you at least are keeping them within bounds of you, so you can still do damage to them. But anyways, we'll see how people play in reality when it actually gets released. So, keeping in mind Whirlwind Slash is now a snare to trip combo, and apparently does extra damage to bleeding targets, stun targets, and tripped targets. God forbid a target is literally stun, tripped, and bleeding. He is literally going to die from Whirlwind Slash. That just seems to be the case, considering how high these percentages are, 29%, 52, and 33. That's kind of interesting, but it's insanely hard to actually stun or trip someone at all, let alone make somebody bleed unless you have archery. So, we'll see how people play around with new Whirlwind Slash. In fact, I don't even think I like the new Whirlwind Slash with my builds, personally, but I'm sure people can come up with something. So, Charge has changed to it inflicts Shaken, and I think these are just the stats for Shaken right here in the middle part. Yeah, this seems to be just the stats for Shaken, what that causes on the enemy target. Otherwise, it just deals damage, it does extra damage to people who are slowed, and if a target is stunned, they're tripped. They have to be stunned first. And keep an eye out for how many things actually stun in the game based on these balance changes, or balance proposals. So we'll get to that. Battle Rage has the Battle Focus, and I believe this is all stayed exactly the same. Let's see here. 20 seconds. Parry rates increased by 30%. Melee crit rates increased. And France has been increased by 20%. I believe that's melee crit. Parry by 30%, melee crit by 20%. I think that's what we have currently. Is that true? Yeah, close enough. They don't decrease the mana cost anymore of Battle Rage skills, but that makes sense considering... or the cooldown, actually. So they remove the cooldown decrease in Battle Rage skills. That's actually kind of important. And they also remove the mana cost decrease, but all mana costs have been reduced completely anyways, so that was expected. Alright, so let's get back to this. So, we've talked about Whirlwind Slash already. Sunder Earth, they've increased the damage coefficient on this one. I know that in general they've decreased damage coefficients across the board for Battle Rage skills. For example, Whirlwind Slash is 200%. If we look in the game currently, actually this won't be a very accurate number because, oh, that's actually increased. That's interesting. How much is Sunder Earth? Nearly 400%. But see, these damage coefficients listed in-game here are actually based off of my skill damage too, so there are increases in melee skill damage. So if I remove this, you'll see the damage coefficient should go down. Yeah, there we go. So it did go down. So what we see in the article here is damage coefficients from, I guess, having no equipment on, which is kind of important. Whirlwind Slash and Sunder Earth are much higher now. Also with Sunder Earth is it does extra damage to tripped targets. It still does the regular AoE effects of slowing targets and decreasing the damage that allies take in a radius for 7 seconds up to 30%. So all that's the same. It still does the normal provoke stuff if you have Toughen on. That is all still there, extra damage to bleeding. Really the big change here is that it just does more damage, I guess, and that's pretty much it. Can't be comboed with Whirlwind Slash though, because Whirlwind Slash does not trip slowed targets, it actually trips snare targets, right? So Frenzy has a whole bunch of text under it. I've always been interested in Frenzy because it's an interesting skill that a lot of people don't want to use unless they're really fighting mages. So let's take a little bit of a look here of what all these numbers mean. So, first of all, 20 seconds, we know that. Damage to every melee attack power is increased whenever their physical defense is reduced. So I think from the sound of this, Frenzy is pretty much what it was before, except there's a 70% reduction in mana cost, which is much more than it used to be. I think it was like 50% before. So that's kind of interesting. And then also, less sagging for the duration of 20 seconds. I'm not sure what less sagging means, but let's just skip over that part. Something's there for 20 seconds, And, oh, I see. You know what? It probably just means that it starts at 20 seconds, but will increase by, time will increase by 4 seconds. No, that's not true. Yeah, after it runs out, you get a 4-second incapacitation, so you're stunned for 4 seconds after, 4 seconds after Frenzy runs out. This is normal. This currently happens in-game. And, of course, there's an occultism skill that I checked, still makes it so the Frenzy doesn't stun you when it's over, if you have that, that active skill on. Which is urgency. That's still there. So this is pretty much what it was before. I think the only difference is that the mana reduction was increased up to 70%, at least from the looks of it. Your defense, your physical defense will still go down to 0% as you use Frenzy, and your melee attack increases actually by 80. That sounds like it's a little bit higher than regular. Yeah. So Frenzy now only increases melee attack by 80, and there's no absorption for received magic damage. That's gone now as well from the looks of it. So that's what they've changed with Frenzy, which is cool. Alright, fine. Very risky to use that, but I guess there's a lot of gain in it. Precision Strike. So, first of all, there's a damage coefficient of 360, a naked damage coefficient of 360, plus 720. If you look in game right now for Precision Strike, well, that's not very helpful. Let me take out all these things here. Where is that? Precision Strike. So, they probably reduced it by just a little bit here. So, let me see. Where's your skill damage? What else here gives me skill damage? I think that's it. Skill damage. These give me skill damage. Alright, what are we at? 414. I think it's actually very close to what it is. Anyways, they've reduced the actual number, fixed number, and the naked damage coefficient down to 360. So they did reduce it a bit. A lot of people are scared of Precision Strike, but, you know, just because it's always been like this crazy move that does tons of damage, and it still will be. People are kind of going nuts that the coefficient is down. Don't get me wrong, that's lower. It's definitely a lower number. But these numbers down here are the same, which are the crit rate increase from behind and the crit damage increase. So crit, 60% increase, and crit rate is increased by 35%. In fact, from the looks of it, it's just always increased by 35%. There's no backstabbing involved here, which I actually wouldn't be surprised about. And the reason for that is because backstabbing has always been kind of glitchy, where it works sometimes and it doesn't work other times. I don't know. So it looks like they may have removed the backstab requirements in order to get the crit rate increase on Precision Strike, which is a big deal. So while it does less damage, overall, it's more reliable damage. And of course, it still has the combo here for extra damage on bleeding targets, which, when you're doing that much damage with Precision Strike, is pretty important. Alright, Tiger Strike, everybody's favorite ability that just, like, completely screws everybody over, especially Lightning Tiger Strike. First of all, Lightning Tiger Strike in 3.7 got nerfed, so that it's a 20% slower skill than what it is now, where each hit is 1.2 seconds instead of 1 second. That's a big deal, because you can actually just stun the person or CC them in some way before it finishes. But that's in our current version. In this version, we don't know. All we know is that something changed with regular Tiger Strike. So, first of all, Tiger Strike does extra damage to shaken targets. I think that's actually currently in the game. I don't know, I don't want to check right now. But this is the big deal. This is where all the AoEs start coming into play. Tiger Strike on movement speed reduced targets will cause snare. Now remember, you can't turn when you're snared. But more importantly, you can actually combo that with Whirlwind Slash. You can combo that snare with this Whirlwind Slash. So first, how do you trip now as a melee? The story. 1. You have to get some kind of a slow on them. What's a good slow that's AoE? This one, Sunder Earth. Okay, let's say that you cast Sunder Earth, you slowed a bunch of people. Then you cast Tiger Strike. Okay, now they're all snared. And then after Tiger Strike, you have to get, I guess, the third shot of Whirlwind Slash. Maybe it's the first one, I don't know. And that will trip them. That will cause the trip. It is literally 3 moves you have to do. And maybe even more, depending on how many hits from Whirlwind Slash you need. But at least 3 moves you need to do in order to trip an AoE set of people. That's a big deal. That is a huge big deal. And just in general, to trip them this way, you have to do it. You have to, you know, if you're going to be tripping with Whirlwind Slash at all, you have to set it up, and that's a big setup. So, besides that, impaled targets get tripped. I mean, I am going to go Executioner. It's just end of story. I'm going Executioner. In whatever patch this comes in, I'm going to be going back to Executioner. And from what I'll spoil a little bit later, I'm going to be going Shadowplay Abyssal Skillset Executioner, just like I did a long time ago. I feel super great about it. And I'm going to be practicing with it early, probably right as soon as 4.0 comes out. But anyways, let's move on here. So Bond Breaker, everybody's favorite skill, which everybody... First of all, let me just say that I hate Bond Breaker. Like, it's a skill where you walk into battle, and if you're not spamming this button, just always, even if you don't need to, then you're not using it efficiently. And that sucks. It feels bad to have that. So let's see if they fixed it. I actually haven't really checked. Bond Breaker. The translation says foot game. Excellent. Opponents available only foot hassle. So it looks like that's still... it's still only available to use this while shackled. I'm sorry, not shackled. Snared. So it stops you from getting snared. And timed effects removes global latency. So they still have the latency. So it still doesn't... Okay, let me explain this a little bit better and do it in parts. First of all, it looks like you can still trigger this without causing global cooldown, and you can trigger it during global cooldown. That is still a thing. And then, the upper portion here, you can use it to take away pronunciation game. Let's try to redo it. Here we go. Oh man, I love it. So it looks like it can take away snared, and from the sound of it, that's all that it can do. Is it can just take away snared. Let's try to translate this one line at a time and see what we got. That doesn't help. Try this once more. Oh god, I'm like M-Drive message. What was that? There we go. Okay. Man, it's just off for some reason. Oh, it worked. Bob. Oh, this is not helpful. Alright, alright. Pretty sure that it takes away snared, though. Which is important, I guess, considering... Oh, this is not helpful. It's important considering that that snared is pretty much required in order to get a trip combo, right? So, fine, Bond Breaker takes away snared. I don't think that it lasts 5 seconds, though. I don't see the number 5 anywhere here. If I look in-game currently... oh god, I have so many things up. If I look in-game currently, Bond Breaker definitely has a 5-second timer. It also has a 21.6-second cooldown, which I think is only reduced because of the attack speed training here. But anyways... I believe they reduced the cooldown on this to 18 seconds, right? So you can use this more often, and it will take away snared. That's it. That's all that it does. It doesn't prevent more snared. That's all that it does. It might do more. Again, they might change all these things before the actual patch comes out, but that seems to be what Bond Breaker does. So, let's move on. That's actually a big deal, obviously. It's not only is there less CC, but there's less CC reduction, or removal. Right, okay. Terrifying Roar. Now, Terrifying Roar could have sworn said something different when I looked earlier. Okay, so Terrifying Roar here. We'll just go ahead and do this. Looks like there's a combo where if you Terrifying Roar a person who is feared, they will become tripped. That's actually a really cool combo for people who want to go like Shadowblade. It seems like they've really been pushing Shadowblade lately, trying to get people to merge Witchcraft and Battle Rage together, which works. This makes sense. Alright, so what does this do? 7 seconds, causes weakness to the other person, and it causes everything, all duration effects to be reduced by 20. So this is exactly what it was before. Terrifying Roar, the only real difference that's changed is the combo. Now a combo exists. Or if you combo it with Fear, those targets, this is like an AoE Fear, or AoE Trip, guys, will become tripped. So that's actually really, really good. State offers third effect duration reduction. I don't know what that means. Increased... No, this is pretty much the same thing as what it was before. So, that's cool. Some cool combos with Witchcraft there that are possible. Olo's Hammer. Everybody was so scared when they saw this originally at the beginning of the month. They were like, my god, Battle Rage is getting more trips? Well, first of all, no. They've lost all their trips. And secondly, Olo's Hammer isn't a trip anymore either. It's not just a direct trip. What it does instead... it stuns. This is your combo for stunning. So... It's weird. So, first of all, it does more damage to slow targets, which is pretty cool. That works. Slow targets, cool. Get it. let me... Oh my god, that reminds me of something in archery. We'll get to it. Anyways, so it does more damage to slow targets. It's still an AoE radius. I do kind of want to know what these words say. So let me see here. Goals, specified radius, 3-meter change, melee avoid. Oh, maybe it's unavoidable, actually. Maybe this damage is unavoidable. That's kind of cool. We'll find out later on once things get a little bit more translated. But anyways, so snared targets will become stunned. This is the combo for stun here. So let's say you want to, let's just say you want to trip somebody with this. You want to combo a trip. First, you slow somebody, probably with triple slash or something. Then you snare them, probably with triple slash or something. Okay, now they're snared. You Olos hammer them to stun them, and then you use charge to trip them. That's your super combo. It's like 4 different moves, and between the first 3, something can go wrong. Like, anything can go wrong, or the opponent can Bond Breaker and just screw everything up. Like, there's... And Bond Breaker being such a low cooldown means it can come up pretty often. So, Olos Hammer is not the trip that everybody thought. It's a trip. I'm sorry, it's not even a trip, it's a stun. So it's very different from what people expected. So let's continue on here. Bell, or behind enemy lines, everybody likes that skill. Causes Shaken, we can see that by the description here in the middle about the percentages describing Shaken. Also, it's a 4-meter move, we know about that. Actually, this text here is the same that's on Olo's hammer, so what exactly does this mean? To avoid, it might actually be unavoidable, both of these skills. That might be like the new trait for Battle Rage. Nope, it just means it's melee damage, that's all. I think both of them are like that. So it just means there's melee damage. Okay, fine. So, Bell. Let's see what this last line is here. Ooh, that's having a hard time to convert. Feat 10 prizes of the state, in which corresponding technology to use water. Alright, let's redo that. Let's see what we get this time. Nope, same thing. Wow, what if that's actually what it means? I'm kidding. Let me actually look at current Battle Rage here. Or current Bell. It might just be that it cancels Bubble Trap, Telekinesis, and Petrify. That might have stayed. Might be. Guess we'll find out more about that one later. I don't think it's that critical, though. The combos are what's critical. So, snare targets are distressed. So if you notice that Tiger Strike doesn't have that distress combo anymore. It actually doesn't cause distressed. Everybody used to use Tiger Strike to cause distress. Now, if you really want to distress the target, they have to be snared first, and then you have to use Bell on them, which, if you're not within range, which I think is this, actually, is there a range cap on Bell? Maybe they took that away. Oh no, yes, there is. It's still 620 meters. So after you stun, or after you snare them, you have to get out of range, use Bell, and then they'll become distressed, which distressed is a pretty powerful move, so it's not something to laugh about when you get distressed. Except the attack speed reduction from distress isn't that crazy anymore because everybody across the board has an attack speed increased based on what skills they're using, skill sets they're using. But anyways, there's another combo where this can cause tripped if the target is slept. This is where Dark Runners are supposed to do stuff from my understanding. This is where the Dark Runner is supposed to shine. This is their move. They sleep the target with Leech, because Leech has been moved over to Shadow Play. And then you can backtrap and Bell them, and then they're tripped. Okay, cool. That's your move. I don't know. I don't really have any comments about this. I guess it's pretty cool that if you're doing teamwork in this game for some reason, and you have a bard up front using the alarm call that sleeps everybody in an AoE radius, assuming that still exists, then you can Bell all those people and they're tripped. That's pretty cool. I like that. Makes sense. I guess. Except they'll get slept anyways. Like, if the target gets awoken and that guy is still playing his music, those targets will just go right back to sleep. So, I don't know if this is the craziest combo with that, but it's definitely a combo. It just goes to show that crowd control across the board has been very severely reduced for Battle Rage. So let's continue here. All these things have changed to some degree. First of all, this one, which used to be the last passive, seems to be the first one now, and it increases... Oh, I didn't actually realize this. Okay, so what I said earlier is wrong. Yeah, melee crit rate still is a thing. That wasn't reduced, it was just moved over to here. So now we get melee crit rate increased by 9%. I think we already have that anyways. The current one is 8%, but also lets you parry ranged attacks, which that seems to be completely gone. You can't parry ranged attacks anymore, which sucks, because in all the animes you can do that, and you can't do that here. Okay, fine, cool. We'll continue on. Let's recapture. Let's do this next one here. So this is a pretty long one to translate. And, oh, I can actually, there we go. All right, dual wielding, ranged. This is where the, okay, this makes sense now. This is your primary parry passive. So they just moved that parry of ranged attacks to this. So if you are dual wielding, you can parry ranged attacks still if you're using this skill. That's what I'm trying to say. And then they've also made it so that the permanent increase for parry rate is there, 2%. And then the default cooldown and fighting ability and attack types in Battle Rage, it will cycle faster than the membrane if half launched. Okay. I think, I've looked at this earlier, and I think what this means is that the cooldowns on all Battle Rage skills, I don't know whether or not they're just going to be reset instantly. I actually think they're going to be halved. That's what I think is happening. But, let me redo the OCR and see what happens. Or I can actually just grab the last part of the text here. Just this part. Alright, the specified cycle faster membrane half line. Yeah, I mean, this is what I got earlier. I think it means that either the Battle Rage skills still reset like they currently do, or they are just halved in cooldown. So you can't instantly use those skills, but you'll get them more often. And it can only be used once every 12 seconds, which is what the current one does for the Battle Rage resets. So, kind of important stuff here. We'll see how this plays out. Let's continue on here with the next one. So this is the attack speed reduction, or I'm sorry, the attack speed, delirium sort of thing. We'll just go ahead and capture the whole thing. So, fighting skills, hit frenzy. What does that mean? Fighting skills, hit frenzy in 9 seconds, frenzy melee crit rate 5% increase. So, up to 5 times. So it looks like the delirium stacks are still a thing. They'll increase attack speed and melee crit damage. And that's it. I don't know what this means, actually. Fighting skills hit frenzy. What does that mean? Let me just capture this first sentence here, because there's a word here that's fighting skills hit frenzy. Is this word the same as this one? Nope, it isn't. So whatever this word in yellow is, I don't know what it means. Fighting skills hit... Oh, it generates delirium. That's what that means. Okay. So this generates delirium, and it tells you exactly what it does. Lasts 9 seconds, right? Is active for... I'm sorry, it gives you 5% crit rate, right? And then 50 attack speed up to 5 times. Pretty cool. Alright. So they're not making that delirium stacks as OP as it used to be. Makes sense, that's fine. Alright, this guy. Now, we all know this to increase melee damage. Let's see what it actually does. It increases melee damage by 12%. Alright, the attack probably. Attack increases by 12%. Okay, so that's fine. That actually does, I think, more than it does currently. If we look in game. Currently increases 5%. Now people are really going to want to take this if they want to just maximize their melee damage. And I looked at this one earlier, this puncture. So puncture is actually kind of crazy now. 5 seconds still, but it's a 3,000 reduction in melee defense that you're taking away from the person. So it's still a debuff on the target for 5 seconds that after you crit them, they'll have their physical defense reduced by 3,000. Kind of a big deal still. They're really pushing people to get out of CC and just to do the damage. And I like that, actually. I like that approach a lot. But alright, let's continue here. So the hatred skills in general have stayed the same. Across the board, everything in general has stayed the same. There's been a few changes, but everything in general is the same. Now, again, you accumulate hatred stacks over time. Not over time, sorry, but by using any of the skills here. So I want to see exactly what this says. Rising hatred. 12 seconds. Maximum hate is increased by 2, and you get 1 extra increase for each thing. Does not keep the time increased, yeah. Okay, so I think what this means in general is you'll gain extra charges from doing skills, and you gain a maximum. And while this is actually active, just like it is currently, you won't lose any hatred stacks or abyssal stacks while this is active. Well, then it still has a 2-minute cooldown from the looks of it. So that's how that works. And its time is actually based on how many stacks you have, or how many charges you have when you use this. Alright, and then everything else there is the same. So, Battle Rage passives. First of all, this one generates stacks for charges, rather, for Abyssal. The second one here is the Reckless Charge, which is now only active if you have Abyssal Battle Rage set. You will not get this any other way. And what it is anytime you use some kind of skills, you will get 40% between 40% physical damage. So we know this is staying the same, physical damage reduction. This I'm not totally sure about. So they're probably going to be reducing, I would assume it's the same exact thing as what it is currently, but if you'll notice, the big change here is that it's 40% reduction in the crowd control times as opposed to the 35% that we currently have. Not the craziest change in the world, but they're trying to get people to use Abyssal Battle Rage, so there you go. Alright, and then this one. There's going to be a theme with these second passives, you'll notice in a lot of the DPS skill trees. This increases the melee skill damage by 10%. That's what this does. If you get Abyssal Battle Rage, you get 10% extra skill damage for all melee skills. Cool. So, magic. Let's continue here. So I'm not that proficient with the magic stuff. I play Outrider, and that's about it. I played Executioner for an insanely long amount of time, but that's not sorcery. So excuse me if some things are going to be wrong in this section, but I at least want to go through and just go through at least everything and translate it to some degree. So let's begin at the top here. Firebolt. I think everything here was the same. I think it's just the combos actually that are different. So why don't we go ahead and why don't we just run over to Dude, or Nui rather. Okay, I could just do this, can't I? There we go. All right. So I want to run over and look at the different skill sets. Alright, come on. Come on, loading screen. Yeah, so we'll see in a second here. We'll just compare the current ones to the new ones, because I'm not that proficient with this stuff. I can imagine some differences, but let's go ahead and do this. So, let's just change archery out for sorcery. So, current Fireball has these combos with freezing, burning, and innervated. Let's go ahead and look over here. So they took away the innervate combo. I bet they've changed innervate, honestly. We'll look at that. So they kept the other combos still here, and Fireball itself seems to be what it was earlier. No real massive changes there. But they took away these attack 1, attack 3 things. That could be different, so let's take a look at what this says exactly. It's possible also that it just does what it does currently, but in our English version they just decided to make it a little bit more obvious what it does. So this says the best into company, continuous use, no attack. It's not very helpful, and I think it just causes burning for 3.2 seconds on the target, so there's nothing really too crazy here. They might have just gotten rid of all those combos with different attacks with Fireball. So, let's continue here. Freezing Arrow still causes slow. Actually, does it normally cause slow? I didn't actually know that, if it caused slow. Where is Arcage? Oh, it currently causes slow. I didn't even know that. Interesting. Alright, so it currently has combos with Burning, Freeze, Sleep, and Freezing Steps to make that instant. If we go over here, it still makes Freezing Steps instant. Or, I'm sorry, it's still cast instantly if Freezing Steps is active. But there's this new combination here, which we need to learn a little bit more about. And they also remove the sleep combo. So what does this mean? I have no idea. Alright. Ice 1, enemy and more. 20 seconds synchronous occurrence, EVP time reduction. Very interesting. So that is this sentence here. And there's something here for 20 seconds. Got it. So this is the new level 3 ice, or whatever you want to call it, that freezes the target instantly, right? Is that what it currently says in game? Yeah, inflicts deep freeze for 20 seconds. So that's what this is. It just causes deep freeze, and you get a little icon telling you exactly what that is. This is deep freeze then. The icon for deep freeze. Cool. Good stuff. Very, very, very cool. Let's continue. Capture. So insulating lens. I think they've been messing around with this a little bit over the past few big patches. So shield generation 40 seconds. Increased physical defense. There's a number that essentially a shield, and all damage to the hull for the shield is a blast to around my targets. What? Hold on a minute. What? This seems different. Let me just get this last part here. What does this mean? All damage to the hull of the shield is a blast around. So wait a minute. If you absorb a bunch of damage, do you radiate it back out to all targets within 6 meters? Yeah. That seems to be what this is. That is kind of cool. They're, of course, really trying to get people to use this. They're like, oh my god, nobody's using insulating lens. Let's just make it deal damage. I don't know. So they did that. Okay, fine. Arc Lightning. So everybody hates this move because when you're shot by it, you die. Looks like the damage coefficient is still ridiculous. If we look in game, where is it? Arc Lightning is here. Oh, they lowered it a little bit. Or maybe that's just because I have skill damage increases. No, it shouldn't be. Because I'm not a mage. Ah, I see. They lowered the coefficient here, but they moved some of it to the base damage. Okay, fine. So there's some stuff here. It causes electrocution, and there's a combo with poison. I think that's already in there. Nope, it used to have a combo with impaled and electric shock. Now it doesn't have a combo with either of those. So that's how they're making this less OP. They've removed the combo with electric shock for Arc Lightning. That is a big deal. All right, let's see exactly what it does. Damage to shock 8 seconds, does this amount of damage, and then it bounces 2 meters around the enemy. So this is the exact same thing that it used to do, except you can't combo this for more damage with anything other than poison. Poison, guys. Everybody needs to be going archery and sorcery. That's how you're going to live now. Actually, not even archery. You have to do it with shadow play. This is how they're making Enigmatists happy. This is what they're doing for Enigmatists. They're saying, okay, Enigmatists, now you have to spec into magically poisony arrow, and then you're going to use that, and then that'll be your new Arc Lightning. Cool. Okay, let's move on. Magic Circle is on this list. That means it's changed in some way. Let's go ahead and look at that. So Magic Circle, 20 seconds there. It increases magical crit rate by 9%, and spell power is increased. That's exactly what it is right now. Nothing there has changed, has it? Currently, yeah, it's exactly the same. Why is it even on the list? There's a cooldown of 21 seconds, and it uses some amount of mana. There's a cooldown of 21 seconds and uses less mana. This is exactly as it was before. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Freezing. I guess nobody really used this, but they want more people to use it. I don't know. Alright, freezing steps. Okay, here we go. Causes snare, causes freezing, causes deep freeze. Everything here is exactly the same. Except, why would this do damage? Wait, no, this isn't freezing steps. This is freezing steps. This is freezing earth. This is freezing earth. And I don't know, maybe they've actually made it so that it's a 100% snare, too. Let's do this. 6.2 seconds increase, blah, blah, blah. Reduced by 50%. PvP. Yeah, it looks like they've just made the snare. 6.2 second snare. In PvP, it's 3.1 seconds because it's reduced by half. So, cool. Great. Awesome. If you combo it with freezing, the target is deep freeze. Pretty cool. Does damage extra based on if they're on fire. Awesome. Alright, let's move on. Firewall. Still causes slow. Still causes burn. There's a combo to do extra damage to freezing, which I think is already in the game. And whatever this sentence is. Damage target move speed reduction. Cool. Alright, let's move on. I don't even know why that's there. Wait a minute, 400% damage? Is this damage over time, over 5 seconds? Hold on, do we currently have that in game? Whoa. Hold on, I think Flame Barrier does a ton of damage. Holy crap. That is a ridiculous amount of damage. That is a huge damage coefficient. Okay. That's really cool for classes like Hellweaver that want to move, you know, use this to cause AoE slow and also do a bunch of things. That is really cool. All right, good for them. You have Electrocution, which, you know, this is the Chain Lightning one. This causes still the electric shock in everybody, but there's a combo with poison again. There's a combo with poison here too. What are all these combos with poison? They really want people to go Sorcery Shadow Play. Or Sorcery Witch, Occultism. Occultism has poison, right? Because the crows, I think, are poison. Crows are poison. Am I lying? Am I lying? Man, I do not know where they have that. There's so many skills to go through. I don't think I'll be able to do them all today. Oh man, this sucks. But I will at least introduce you guys to this program to be able to look yourselves for different things. So maybe I'll look at sorcery and archery, and maybe a couple others, and then I'll be done today. Because this is going to be a crazy, crazy long stream otherwise. But anyways, let me look at occultism here. Occultism. What causes poison in occultism? Nope, no poison from summon crows. I don't know how you cause poison in this game. There's a frickin' poison thing on urgency. What? What does this all mean? Oh, I think this is immune to poison. Wait, no, it shouldn't be. Where do you get poison in this game? I think it's just from one skill. There's one skill in this entire game that causes poison. And it's in Shadow Play. Might be wrong, though. Oh, man. So much to go through. Okay. So... okay, anyways, there's also, from the looks of it, if you're insulating lensed, you'll stun a target with this in an AoE? That's kind of interesting, actually. So just sorcery alone has a sort of AoE stun, kind of, which is kind of interesting. Alright, so... I think the rest of this is the same, actually. What does that mean? Yeah, this is exactly the same. So everything is the same, except now there's this combo with poison and a combo to stun. Okay. Cool. Alright, so I'm going to take just a couple minute break here. I'll be right back. And we'll get right back into it, starting off of sorcery. So I'll be right back in just a minute here. Essentially. I need some water, essentially. That's what's going on. Alrighty, here we go. Back now. Let's get right back into it. So, alrighty, so we ended off here with Chain Lightning. Let's take a look at, so this is Flame Barrier. This is the searing thing that nobody ever used ever. And I believe that the most that they did is increase the damage coefficient on that of Searing Rain. No, that's the same. This is literally exactly as it was. I don't see any differences with Searing Rain. 7 seconds, there's a radius. Actually, let's take a look at this closer. Yeah, it does just magic damage. Actually, I think this first sentence is going to tell us a little bit more about what Searing Rain is. Yeah, because that's not very helpful there. What is this? Fire of Rain. Okay. Alright, this is the same as it was before. I don't know why they didn't change Searing Rain in all of this, but fine. Maybe people are actually using that. I don't know. Alright, Freezing Steps. Now, there's this new icon here, which is used in several places. We're going to take a look at what exactly this means. Hopefully it tells us right here. So, target. Enemy, 9 seconds, still walk in the way, 4 seconds. That cold generated, blah blah, immediately freezes brass knot. Cool. Great, let's redo that translation. Okay, redo the OCR. Let's try a different OCR. Let's try just this first couple sentences. Alright, for 9 seconds, you'll walk and they'll become frozen 4 seconds. That's what that means. At least from the idea of it. And this next one here is cold region in contact with the target is the same girl. It's there now. I think it just means you can deep freeze targets. So we know that deep freeze doesn't look like this dude who's slumping over very tired after a long day at work. That's me, by the way. This is just a picture of me. We know that it's not that because deep freeze looks like this. So I don't know what this is here. And this isn't really explaining, so I guess we'll just continue on. Alright, Meteor does a ton of damage as normal. And trips targets. Cool. Still has a ridiculously long cast time, but that can be reduced even more now because of what we had talked about earlier at the beginning, that they've just reduced cast times across the board with different skills. So yeah, and then it has a combo with freezing. Great. Awesome. God's Whip, everybody's favorite ability you can spam. I think this is most of the same, except there's a combo now with poison, as opposed to, I think it was electric shock before. So up to 5 times can be used, and the mana consumption is increased significantly. Nothing new here, except for the combos. And the combos, of course... oh, there was never a combo, actually, with God's Whip at all. I didn't know that. Now there's a combo with God's Whip. If you somehow poison the target, there's a lot more damage. I guess a lot of people are going to be doing that. I guess a lot of people are going to be using some kind of poison move in order to do this, in order to do a ton more damage across the board with these, right? So there's some merit to doing that. Okay, so, continuous technology. I'm going to guess this first one is crit rate. Bingo! 9% crit rate to magic. That seems very familiar to the melee one in Battle Rage. This next one is maximum mana increase, so they kind of kept that. This next one is the mana pool one, I'm sure. Increases attack speed by 20%, cast time decrease by 16%. So this is what they were kind of mentioning earlier, where you just get all these bonuses to becoming faster, essentially, is what this is. Specifics, I don't know, but I guess it's after you use some kind of magic, it creates things for 8 seconds that gives you all this. This is like a buff, I guess, that casts on you. I don't know, but we know that this is the goal of it, is it increases your attack speed, decreases your cast time, and even a 20% reduction in something else. I don't know what that means, the magic abilities. Maybe decreases cooldown? I kind of don't think that it would be doing that. Let's see what this says right here. Physical defense strong you. Really? It increases your physical defense. Oh, physical what? Your physical defense is reduced by 20%? Okay. That's something you have to sacrifice, I guess. That's interesting. I don't know if it's true or not, but okay. The magic ability of this to connect last time. Don't know what that means. I'm going to ignore it for now, because there's a lot to go through. I just want to go through the rest of these, and archery, I think, is what I'm going to be doing today. The rest is going to be on everybody else, given the tools that I'm showing off here, in order to just be able to see and guess at different things. And again, it's important to note, don't make any assumptions in this entire thing. All of this can change, any of this can change before it actually gets released in Korea, and then before it actually comes to us, they'll probably do a bunch more changes to balance patch the balance patches. it's just obvious that that's what they're doing. So don't be too crazy about all this stuff. I personally think that melee after this patch is going to be in a much better and more balanced position than ever before, and archery might become OP again. I just have a strange feeling that's going to be the case. But if it is the case, they'll find out on Korea and they'll make some kind of changes to adjust, possibly. And based on what they're doing in this patch, they're perfectly fine with making drastic changes. So keep that in mind. It's not an end-all if things don't look the way you want them to or don't feel the way you want them to. Alright, so let's continue here. This last pass, or the second to last passive for sorcery is not... Wait, what? That wasn't helpful at all. What's going on? Oh, I have to... There we go. Intelligence increased by 12%. Okay, so they've increased... Yeah, that's a direct translation. Okay. Let's figure out this last one here. Last passive. Advanced time, 8% reduction. I think that's just cooldown 8% reduction, right? Or, I'm sorry, not cooldown, but... it could be cooldown, actually. Yeah, cooldown makes sense. It's either cooldown or cast time. I mean, I assume that it's cooldown. Alright, so these generally stay the same, I've noticed. The abyssal skills, but then the passives themselves. The first one, of course, generates abyssal charges. The second one here, for sorcery, again, you're going to notice a... So here we go. Silence effect duration reduced by 30%. I mean, that's pretty good for people who are sorcerers and things like that, you know, to have silence reduced by duration. There's actually a lot of things in this game that do silence, and even a lot more. So we'll get to that when we get to archery. And then this next one here, as you'll notice a pattern between Battle Rage, increases magic skill damage by 10%. Okay. Alright, archery, finally. This is the one that everybody's looking at right now. First of all, Endless Arrows has a lower damage coefficient, a lower naked damage coefficient. That's kind of important, just to keep in mind. And then everything else is the same. I already know this, I've already looked at this. Charged Bolt is a big deal in that it doesn't do anything. It's actually nothing different with Charged Bolt, is there? Everything is exactly the same as it was. 2.5. Let me actually switch over back to archery in game here. Reset. Or no, not reset. Let's talk to this dude. Switch to archery. Alright. And I'll just do my normal spec that I normally do all the time. Alright. There we go. So, archery, you don't have piercing shot anymore. But charged bolt, yeah, I think it's generally all the same. If I look at the ancestral skills for charged bolt, looks like there's a combo now with bleeding as opposed to with stunned for extra damage. So, okay, fine, whatever, that's cool. You get an extra damage for bleeding instead of stunned. You can cause stunned, and you can cause stunned in the same ways that you currently can. So this isn't really changing too much. There's a 300% damage coefficient on that, which is definitely more than it is currently by about 100%. So pretty cool. That's not bad. Charged Bolt does more damage. We don't know what the ancestral skills look like, but I assume they follow suit. Snare is a big difference, so let's take a look at that. I think Snare is a big difference. Or maybe not. Currently, Snare will actually remove Shackled. That's the big deal. I want to know whether or not that's still a thing. So this says, Footprints game, target is evading, waste semester with weapons students. Weapons is a good keyword here. The fact that it even says that kind of means that it's very likely that Shackle is removed when you use this. Oh, I remember what this is. Snare reduces the target's ability to evade or block or parry, that sort of thing. And I think that it still removes Shackle. I think it still does that. I'm not totally sure. See how it looks here. It might not. It might not remove Shackle anymore. It's really hard to tell from this. But it still does do the snare. And it still reduces their ability to block and parry and such, so I guess it's still useful. And of course the snare is reduced by 50% in PvP, so it's still about 3.1 seconds. Alright, float changed a little bit. It's now a 17-second move and increases your damage by 35%, as well as a 100%, what is this? Dodge rate of 100% reduction. So you can't dodge anything. Oh, I see, your ranged crit damage increased by 35%. but you can't dodge anything. So this is like the normal float, except number one is it doesn't give you more range like a normal float does currently, and number two is I guess it does ranged crit damage as opposed to just flat out range damage, which ranged crit is like the big deal right now, and it always has been, so I guess that's fine. It's cool. Especially if you're combining this with other skills, so we'll see how that plays out. Alright, this next one, so this is the new skill that you have in archery. Let's see what the name translates to. The Arrow of Light. I really hope they keep that. That's pretty cool. It doesn't look like it would be a light arrow. It looks more like it would be a frost arrow, but we'll just go with it. So the Arrow of Light has, well, first of all, it's an arrow of light. That's what this stuff means. It's range damage. This middle part here, though, is where I was confused as well. So 10 seconds, Vision Award. It looks like what it does is it reduces accuracy by 4% for 10 seconds, and it can stack up to 4 times. So up to 16% accuracy reduction for the target. That is a big deal. Even just 4%, even using this once on one target is a huge deal. People don't understand accuracy in this game. But if you're down 10% accuracy, 1 in 10 of your moves will not work. And I know that sounds totally logical and wait, that's obvious. That's how that makes sense. 1 in 10 of your moves doesn't work. It goes on cooldown. Like, if you miss, that is on cooldown now. You don't have it anymore. And it's not just for melee. It's for ranged. It's for magic. Magic can miss. That is a big deal. So this is actually a pretty powerful skill at 25 meter range to be using, and it does a lot of damage, or at least a pretty decent amount of damage. So if we look at this last line here, it looks like it has the same combos as what the bleeding shot used to do, where it increases the severity of slow, and it does extra damage to bleeding. Oh shit, this has a 100% crit rate. This has a 100% crit rate too. So the Arrow of Light has a 100% crit rate. You use it every 7 seconds at least. Wow, that is pretty cool. I like that for archery. That makes sense as a pretty good path. And then there's this combo here. What the hell is this? So Mana Force, which I believe is range damage now. We can check that with this. It is range damage now, this Mana Force. And it just pushes the target 20 meters. That's all that it does, really. Except it also has some bonuses here, where apparently it can cause weakness on the target, just like Terrifying Roar, if you use it with a combo of this guy, which is pretty cool. That is actually really, really cool, I would say, but you can still only use it within 10 meters of the target. And then also there's a combo with Stalker's Mark. What is that? You push them an extra 10 meters, I believe. Yep. So you can actually push them up to 30 meters away. That's pretty cool. If you Stalker's Mark the target, they push them up to 30 meters. It's not bad. I like that. Alright, Deadeye. I think this is the one where you gain more damage as you run away from them. Let's see. So 60 seconds long. Crit rate is increased by 19%. I guess it's not what I thought it was. Okay. That's fine. I guess it just increases... Pain is 60 seconds in 1 second over. I think it is what it currently is, except instead of giving you a flat damage boost, it gives you crit rate for range. So you have to stand still for 1 second. This thing kicks in, and then you gain ranged crit rate by 19%. That is a huge amount of crit rate for ranged. That is kind of crazy, actually. And the effect ends if you move. But until you stop again, I would assume, like it is currently. So that's kind of interesting. Alright, Concussive Arrow. Big, big change. It doesn't shackle anymore. Concussive Arrow doesn't shackle anymore. It silences instead. The Explosive Bomb Arrow silences you. Shh! You just whack this in their face, they explode, and then they can't talk. That's what's going on. So that's the big difference with Concussive Arrow. It still does a lot of damage. There's a last line here that says, cannot be blocked or dodged in any way. And it just silences them for 3.5 seconds and has a combo with how many stacks of bleeding they have. I believe that's what this is. It's what it is currently. But this is a big deal. That means that archers alone, just archery alone, cannot shackle a target. Archery alone is not the perfect counter to melee. I don't think it ever really was. It's a perfect counter to healers and mages, but not so much melee. So anyways, that's what that does. Now intensity here is, Nuo, if you're still around, this is what you were looking for. Intensity, we'll just highlight the whole thing here. You release a barrage of skill cooldown initially. Ah, right, I read this one earlier. Let me actually do it part by part. So, first part. So, release a barrage of skill cooldown initialization. What does that mean? Does that mean that it doesn't go out, like, doesn't cause GCD, global cooldown? I don't know what that means, actually. What does this mean? What does this second part mean? 6 seconds survival instinct, and you're immune to some effects from what I understand. That's what this is. It might even be immune to all effects, but it's only for 6 seconds with a 1 minute cooldown. So what it used to do is completely reworked. It doesn't give you crit rate anymore. Ah, here we go. Foot free. Ah, okay, I see. So this is like Bondbreaker in that it takes away snared, I believe. Release a barrage of skill cooldown initialization. Wait, does this just reset all your skills? This could reset all the skills for archery. That seems like that's what this is hinting at. Foot free next. You're not snared, and all of your cools just become... all the skill cooldowns are done. That is interesting. That could be what it is. That makes sense. It's got a 1 minute cooldown, and it gives you 6 seconds of immunity to some... This is like your button when you really want to do something, and you're like in the middle of a battle. This is like the shrug it off of archers. Kind of interesting. I mean, it's not going to stop stun, but it'll make you at least, I guess, immune to it? I don't know. For at least a short duration. And then with a 1 minute cooldown, it's not the most reliable thing, but it is kind of cool. It'll definitely get you away from combat for a little bit. Alright, next up here is the passive. So now this says for 12 seconds you get 30% range. So this is different. This is way different. For a 1 minute 30 second cooldown, for 12 seconds you gain 30% range skill damage increase. That's what this does. This is no more permanent 30-minute buff that you have to push. This is just when you're going into battle, you push this button. That's how this works. Alright, Missile Rain. They had to have reworked this, because it is a horrible skill. Nope, it's the same. Okay, cool. So Missile Rain is exactly as it was earlier, from what I understand. Then there's Snipe, which still does the same thing, and it even trips snared targets, which is really hard to do. I think that's what it is currently anyways. We can even look in-game at that. Yeah, that is what it is currently. And then Missile Rain is the same thing. Yeah, so those aren't changing too much there. But there are definitely a lot more options for archery in general, just the archery class. So let's take a look at the passives. Alright, so the first one, I mean, this is a pretty common thing that we're seeing. Increases crit rate damage, or crit rate by 9%. The next one here increases, I would assume, movement speed by 8%. This last one here is the Feral Mark description. So, every time you crit, for 9 seconds, you gain 55 attack speed, and all of your cooldowns on bow skills are decreased by 0.4 for every Feral Mark that you get. So every time you crit, you get a Feral Mark token. You get up to 5. This is a big deal. This is like... This makes Feral Mark actually meaningful to some degree. And it increases attack speed as well, which is really cool. So, archers, you should be critting. That's your goal. If you're not doing it already, I don't know how you're playing Archer. I mean, I guess that's just the case. So, let's take a look at the last two passives here for archery. This one increases agility by 12%, or the dodge rate by 12%. That makes sense. That, essentially, this was in Shadowplay, now it's here. I think, right? Oh, maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I think that's already there. Yeah, it's right here. It gives you a little bit more evasion than before, but that's good. Alright, and then there's this last one, which increases... Oh, what is this? The Wild Power of Range Attack skill, 25 meters. The United States. Okie dokie. Let's try to redo that one. That's completely different from what it just said. Oh, I see. I moved the page a little bit. Do this again. Might have to do it line by line. Range skill damage up to 30% increase. What does this mean? Let's just do this one here. The wild power of range attacks skills of 0 points, 25 meters to reel. Oh, I think... Okay, this is what they were talking about. So if you're at 25 meters or more, you will do 30% more damage to the target. And if you're at 0 meters from the target, you'll do 0% more damage. This is that passive, that the farther you are away from your target, the more damage you'll do, up to 30%. Now we have the information from that. So abyssal skills have stayed the same. And of course, this first passive gives you charges. The second one here, and you're gonna again notice a similarity with everything else. This reduces physical terminal and blockade reduction. So this reduces the, I believe, the reduction of shackle by 30%. Cool. That's actually really good for archers. And then this next one, as of course you're going to see a notice of similarity, range skill damage increased by 5%. That's fine. So I think people will still want archery abyssal skill set, especially for the serpent sight. But maybe not as not the most necessary thing in the world, especially if you look at shadow play. So I'm gonna do some like rough looking at everything else, I think, and then I'm gonna be done after that, because I've been streaming for a little while now. There's a lot of information in all of this, but you know, take a look at it yourself for sure. Okay, so, and why don't I actually just go ahead and post this into chat so everybody can see it. Should be it. All right. Okay, so Vitalism in general. There are some combos now with like Backdrop and Distressed, and there's combos oddly enough with occultism skills. Like this is that Explodey one, which has changed to some degree, because nobody was using it, so I guess they changed it. There's, you know, Skewer seems to be the same as it was. Things like Revive, you know, these guys, all these. I don't remember everything about Vitalism, but they seem to be mostly the same. Revive even seems to be mostly the same as it was before. There's a 25-meter range on it. And if we just go ahead and look at this real quick, because I'm kind of curious if they've changed Revive. Resurrect with 90% of everything. And I think that's it. Yeah, I think so. Revive is generally the same. It costs a lot less mana. I think it cost a lot more before. Then there's these hearts that combo with this guy, with this next skill, which I think is called Renewal. They've been kind of messing around with Renewal the past few patches too, so let's see what they've done with that. Target friendly victims. I think it's similar to what it used to be. Yeah, 25%. Check for germination. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what this is. I think they've pretty much kept this the same currently. But if the target is affected by it, then you'll get some bonuses with other skills that makes people really want to get this skill now. So that's the idea with using Renewal, is that you can now combo it with things like Mend, and this guy, and the hearts, and this guy as well. So they're trying to push people to use this through combos and other skills. There's this general stat boost from before. There's this guy that gives everybody mana and a shield, which is still there. And there's this guy, which heals everybody in a radius, which is... holy crap, that is a gigantic number. Hold on a minute. What? This can't be every second. This has to be over the course of 16 seconds. That's probably what it is. There's no way that it would be this. Every second you heal 15,000? No. Base? No. That's not happening. Alright, yeah, I think it's over 16 seconds. That would make sense. The actual passes themselves, I'm going to let people look at these themselves. There's a lot of different changes here. I'm curious what these two are. So if we just take a look, if we take a look at this, I would assume that it's healing increase. Yep, healing % increase, and then the other abyssal passive is silenced effect duration decreased by 40%. That's very similar to sorcery. Alright, makes sense for people who are healing. Shadowplay is just changed across the board. Here's your one way to poison people. Sorcerers, you're going to need this. Or sorcery players, you're going to need this. In general, like Pin Down has uses now to actually cause a silence, which is actually really cool. Actually, I like that. There's some new things with Bloodthirst that have become a thing. Like Bloodthirst now has combos that does some kind of thing, which I was trying to figure out earlier what this meant, and I have no idea. You live what? You live one state up enemy's targets. What? Yeah, I was trying to figure out what this means earlier, and I had no luck with it, so I still don't know. It's not even translating full text. Any enemy target if. So there's some kind of target, combos with the Bloodthirst, I guess to get people to just use Bloodthirst now and to think about it to some degree. I like these words though. These words under stealth, they're big words. And then also, we're going to get to stealth in a second. I just want to point this out for all you Shadowplay players. Free Runner gives you 40% movement speed. We know this. This is currently in the game. They took away the agility boost from Free Runner, but it still gives you 40% movement speed. Now, if you have... I can't wait to use this. If you have Shadowplay Abyssal skill set, you get this passive. This guy. This passive and this passive are not what you think. They've completely been changed and reworked. This one, let's go to this one first. I'm excited about the one on the right. The left one gives you reduction of all of your cooldowns by 20%. Yes, that passive was moved here. And actually that old one that gave you 20% reduction of cooldowns, it's right here and it gives you attack speed now. And then the second one for Abyssal passives increases your movement speed by 40%. This is a direct translation. It's perfect. So you get just a 40% movement speed boost if you have Abyssal Shadowplay. That's it. Bam, 40% movement speed boost. It's crazy. It's crazy for archers too that don't want to use Abyssal Archery. Not only that, but Assassination. I was looking at this earlier. I don't think it needs stealth anymore. It has a 40-second cooldown though. I mean, that is big. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of crazy, is that Assassination can just be used. And again, as we talked about earlier, Abyssal charges are generated from all skills in that skill set, not just some specific ones, but all of the skills are giving you some Abyssal charges. So people are actually going to be using Assassination more often than I do when I used Assassination, which I used it as much as I could. I love that skill, and it's really cool. It's a really cool skill. Archers can actually make use of it. And then, I'm not going to look at these right now, but you can do that yourselves. Shadowplay has Leech, which, okay. Oh, so yeah, Stealth. Stealth has some mechanic changes. So, Stealth. For 45 seconds, your movement speed is reduced. We know this already. This is a thing. However, there's accumulation. So over 25 seconds, I think, all of your skill damages increase by 3% for a maximum of 12 so you're gaining stacks, essentially. You're gaining stacks of stealth. And the more that you're in stealth, the higher your damage gets. I don't know exactly what the damage amounts are. You can maybe guess off of here. But that's the idea, is that the longer you're in stealth, the more damage you're going to do when you come out of stealth. And I guess it lasts X amount of time. I don't know. From the actual, not the translation here, but from the looks here, it looks like it's for 2 seconds it increases your damage. So I don't know, it's kind of cool, especially if you mix it with Shadow Smite, because that increases. If you hit people with Shadow Smite, especially from the back, well, mainly from the back, while stealthed, it does double damage. And if you mix it with the fact that you've been stealthed for a while, I guess it's going to do a ridiculous amount of damage. And also, Shadow Smite doesn't just shackle anymore. They have to be poisoned first in order to actually get a shackle off, so that's pretty important to note, too. From Witchcraft, I haven't looked at this too much, but obviously they have Mirror Warp now. Witchcraft in general, man, I cannot remember what I looked at for Witchcraft. I just remember this, yeah. So Bubble Trap has some kind of a combo with electric thing, and I don't even know if it does currently, because this makes it seem like it's going to do damage, maybe at the end of the bubble. I don't know, actually. There's a lot of things. I don't really play Witchcraft. I don't know enough about it. But like this, for example, the Mud Hand will do damage when it comes out of Mud Hand. I would assume Bubble has the same thing. Innervate looks like it's the same thing. It will stun people and do damage at the end. Or at least it will do it to stunned targets, a combo with that. So I encourage people to look at this. Witchcraft now has Silence themselves, the old one from Occultism. But yeah, definitely take a look at this stuff. I'm mostly curious about the Abyssal passives right now. I've been going for like almost 2 hours streaming here, so I want to take a break. I want to be done. But you know, I've talked about kind of the big main classes that everybody's fearing, and that's kind of the most important thing, the big main skill sets. So it looks like Environment, Art Skills, Skill cooldown reduced by 30% is what this is. Okay? And then the other Abyssal passive is... What? What? That was a weird translation. Hold on. Fierce strike at the enemy target to destroy the enemy dragon. So apparently the other Abyssal passive that you get from Witchcraft is it will destroy a dragon, which is really useful if you're playing Skyrim, not so much if you are playing this game. So I don't know exactly why that's translating to the way it is. We'll redo it here. Yeah, that's not a very helpful description for this passive. Alright, so defense is also a pretty big one that everybody's been looking at. But again, you know, there's a lot of CC reduction in the entire game for melee, and I think one of the big key differences in Battle Rage in general is that there's a lot less stun. And for whatever reason, you can shackle a target. That's the big thing with defense here, is that Bull Rush here will actually shackle a target for, I guess, 5.7 seconds or something of that, 5 to 5.7 seconds, which is pretty good, actually. Like, I don't know, I mean, having the ability to shackle a target in general, it's like, in a game with very little CC, this is a pretty big deal. So that's good that defense at least gets that to keep themselves alive and to do some damage in that time. They even have, you know, Retribution for the Fear immunity, which I believe still is Fear immunity. Okay, that's the global cooldown description. Maybe they don't have Fear immunity anymore with Retribution. Yeah, looks like that's gone. All that it does is return damage for 10 seconds. Okay. So no more Fear immunity from Retribution. Invincibility is still invincibility. They increased... I don't know why they put the Ancestral skill here. I think it's just to show off that the Ancestral walls and prisons also have 12 seconds of a time, the same as the regular Imprison. And then, of course, I want to look at the Abyssal passives mainly. So this one I think stayed exactly as it does currently. Increases armor and increases defense, that kind of stuff cumulatively. I don't think that's what currently is in the game, but I guess, yeah, you gain defense every time you get attacked, maybe. Something of that sort. And then there is this second one here, which decreases the cooldown time of all defense skills by 20%. And that's all that it does. It used to have a different effect, which also increases your continuous health regen by a tiny bit. That's gone, it looks like. It wasn't really that crazy anyways, but now you don't have to think about that. And then Auramancy, I think there's really only couple important things here that are really, really useful. First of all, Shrug It Off, and wow, these are just the same icons. I just realized that. This one and this one. Alright, so so sleep effect. Okay, so this is normal. 1 minute of sleep immunity. Shrug It Off. Let's see what this does. So this is completely different. Fear effect off 5 seconds. Magic damage reduced by 16%. And you can do this during global cooldown. So it looks like Shrug It Off just takes off fear. That might not be true, but from preliminary guesses here, it looks like Shrug It Off is just to take away fear. No more stun removal, but who cares? There's like so little stun in this game anyways, that now stuns and trips are almost guaranteed. And then Liberation is the other big one. So Liberation used to make you immune to Shackle and Silence as a huge, crazy skill. And now it looks like it's completely changed to absorb magic damage. And to, I guess, absorb it and recover that amount for 5 seconds. And it's got a 45-second cooldown. Something along these lines. That seems to be what it does, which is completely different from what it used to be, which was just flat-out immunity to Shackle and Silence, which was really, really huge. So, I think, and then also important to note, Protective Wings is not an immunity to magic damage anymore. It's reduction by 50% in that area of magic damage, which is also very, very important to note. The passives for Abyssal skills in Auramancy is received. This is normal, just a little bit more absorption of damage. And then the other passive in the Abyssal skill tree of Auramancy is that I guess all of your cooldowns are 10% shorter. Only 10% really for Auramancy. Might be because of teleport though. Alright, and then Occultism, we'll very, very quickly go over this one, because you'll notice that there are poison, there's like one poison actually, yeah, there's a couple poison combos. I don't know why combo of poison has a combo with urgency, but there you go. There's apparently a combo with stealth out of when you summon crows, there's a combo out of stealth, which is kind of cool actually, and I'm very excited to play Executioner once again. There's a lot of cool passives that seem to be doing what they did before. Cultism has Boneyard now, they have Shadow Step now. I'm so glad to be able to retain those playing Executioner in that patch. My god, I'm freaking gonna love Executioner again. I played it for like 3 years, and I finally get to go back to playing Executioner. And then a big change was this guy. So this last skill in Occultism, which I don't remember the name of it, but it used to explode and attack everybody and do almost nothing every time you died. It still does it when you die. However, it will also stun all those targets for 9 seconds. So when you die, you will explode like before for almost no damage, except all of those targets within 4 meters will be stunned for 9 seconds. And you can't remove stun anymore. Yeah. That is big. That is huge. That is insane. I think that's insane. I think everybody should think that's insane. I think that's OP. Especially when we have ults in our version. Send your ult in, let him stun everybody for 9 seconds, and then just kill them. I really hope that doesn't become a thing. This might get changed. I feel like this is going to get heavily nerfed before the main patch. I like the song, actually. Okay, so anyways, let's look at the passives really quick for the Abyssal skills here in Occultism. Passives are reduction of 30% time in their skills for Occultism, pretty cool. And the other one is you just go crazy, apparently, is what this means. I'm not. You're self-dep right crazy at target. What the hell? Alright, I don't know what that translates to at all, but I guess we'll find out later on. Flower congestion doesn't seem very nice, but there you go. And then Songcraft, there's a lot of different. I think there's similar combos to what they currently are, except you'll notice that a lot of the songs don't have their combos anymore. Oh no, wait, they do. Never mind. Yeah, I think generally Songcraft stay the same. This looks new. What is this thing? What is this? This skill here. Music of the Bed. Target 2. It's a self-target for 2 seconds. You and whoa. What? So for 2 seconds, you gain 200% movement speed, and you use it once every 28 seconds. Alright, Zeal builds, you have to put this in there. Every Zeal build will have this. Oh my god, that is kind of crazy, actually. 200% movement speed. If they bring back that that event over Christmas or whatever, where you have to open up boxes, everybody's going to be running this, for sure. Not that they weren't running Songcraft before for that event, but there you go, now there's more of a reason to. It's kind of hilarious, actually, just thinking about how fast people might be able to go in the next patch, or in that balance patch. And then everything else generally seems to be the same. There's combos with different songs and such. I looked at Zeal already, that's the same as it is. Yeah, the Zeal is the same as it is currently, just to at least some degree, at least very close. And then I want to look at the Abyssal passives. So the Abyssal passives for Songcraft are Chase of duration is 2-fold increased. So I guess the songs are increased duration by 2 times. So they moved that one there for some reason. And then this is probably cooldown. Yep, cooldown is reduced by 20%. So all of the Abyssal passives seem to have a very similar sort of design, behind them. Those passives they'll reduce your cooldowns for that skill set, and they'll give you some other bonus. For the main DPS skill trees, that being Battle Rage, Sorcery, and Archery, they'll give you extra damage boosts. For everything else, there's just other boosts associated with those Abyssal passives. So it's a lot of very cool information. Again, who knows how this stuff is going to be changing over time. It's going to go, it's going to go through the focus group testing over, I guess, this weekend, next week in Korea. They'll take a look at it. They'll make changes. They'll release it. I guess they're hoping by the end of fall to release it in Korea. And then before we get it, they're going to probably be changing a whole bunch more stuff because, you can see how crazy of the changes are to this entire game. The entire combat system is pretty much changing. CCs are a lot less of a thing. Direct damage is more of a thing. So, it's a lot of stuff to take in. So, again, if you guys want to look at this yourselves, there's a link to it in the chat. And then if you want to use this Chrome plugin, because this Chrome plugin is absolutely amazing for translating, it's called Copyfish, and you can go into the options in Copyfish and make it so that it translates Korean to English, and then you can just click on whatever you want, and you'll see a direct translation, more or less, of what you see. So it is pretty cool. Definitely check that out. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but that's what I'm using in order to kind of look at everything here, and I recommend everybody do the same. Now again, I have to stress, don't go nuts if you don't like a change here or whatever, or it seems like it's like crazy. If you play Dark Runner, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to do something else. Like, it's just not, it doesn't feel as they've made some things cool for Dark Runner specifically, but it's not gonna be the melee class that everybody's gonna go to, I feel. And everybody says like melee is doomed in this patch, and I don't know, they might be, who knows. I don't want to make any assumptions like that, but Melee's definitely going to have to play very differently, because they can't just keep their target down. And in Raid vs. Raid, that wasn't even a big deal anyways, because there's still going to be targets shooting at you from every direction. But in Raid vs. Raid, you have to come up with some other way to guarantee damage, which, I mean, if you're like me and you're going to play Executioner, like I have for a very long time, and like I do currently with Outrider, I just capture people with Bonewall and kill them. Like, that's just what I do in Raid vs. Raid. And you have to come up with ways like that to play to guarantee damage. You're not going to be able to do what you used to do, which is just like an infinite stun, infinite trip, and so on. Also, with this patch, I would assume that they actually remove those, like the trip immunity timer and things like that, because it's almost impossible to trip and stun people anyways. So maybe those immunity timers will go away after you like trip somebody 3 times or what have you. I don't know. We'll see. There's no mention of it in these patch notes, or I'm sorry, in these proposed balance changes, I should say. But there you go. I think that pretty much covers everything that they've talked about in here. Let me just scroll all the way down to the bottom. There's a lot of comments from the Korean folks there. But yeah, so it's a ton of changes. We'll see what actually goes live after the focus group testing. We'll see how the focus group testing works. I assume that because they've made this public, they might even make the focus group testing kind of, they'll either stream it or they'll stream something out of it. Or they'll allow people in there to stream themselves or record it and put it up later. I don't know. We'll find out a lot of information. We've heard that Kun is going over to that focus group testing, so at the very least we'll hear from him, as well as other Korean streamers that are going over to there to do the focus group testing, and we'll see how this all plays out. So I think that's it for today. Again, this is going to be this whole thing is going to be highlighted and put up on my Twitch channel. So if you want to take a look at it, if you missed something earlier you want to see, you can go back to it later and just skip through any parts wherever you want to skip to, that sort of thing. Because that's a VOD. That's how it works. I don't know why I'm explaining the internet to you guys, but there you go. Alright, that's going to be it. Again, if you like what you see, normally I just do regular streaming with Arcade or any other games. Those streamings are Monday, Thursday, and Saturday at 9 p.m. Central, though I might be moving that time down to 8 p.m. Central soon, because I just like that time a little bit more. But, and I just stream Arcade, do random stuff, and then if you like researching things in Arcade, you can check out the Arcade Research and Development Discord down below. There's a description of that, and you can just check it out. You can see all of our research there freely, so feel free to join up and say hi and all that, and it's cool. Great to have more people as a part of that. And we actually do research streams too at random times, which we just go through and get all the people together and we just mess around with the game mechanics and see what we can do. And there is a lot of research done just from that, and all of that stuff is posted in that Discord. So check that out if you want. The Arcade Research and Development Discord down below. You just click the big icon and that'll take you to the Discord. And I think that is it. If you like what you see, please go ahead and follow me. That helps me a lot as a streamer. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Saturday, so tomorrow at 9 p.m. Central. See you guys then. Thank you guys for watching. Good day.